you so much for joining us here at The Research Her, the show working to improve the health disparities for women of color, one topic at a time. I am Alicia. I'm here learning and growing with you as we research our way to well-being. I am so excited to bring you all this episode with our great sis, Dr. Malika Grayson, who is, let me tell you, thebomb.com. I mean, great.8, the shit.it, all of that, okay? She was raised in Trinidad and Tobago, and she is a STEM speaker, engineer, and author who has her Ph.D. in mechanical engineering from Cornell University, where she became the second Black woman in Cornell's history and first Black American to receive her Ph.D. in mechanical engineering. Dr. Grayson is a STEM advocate and is passionate about increasing the number of minority women who pursue advanced degrees. Her passion can be seen through her blog, Black Girl's Guide to Grad School, where she reviews personal statements and scholarship essays. Get this, free of charge. She has reviewed over 100 essays and has mentored a number of women through the essay writing process. Through her LLC, STEMiness Empowered, she has shared her journey as a Black woman in STEM. And let's drop some amazing news. Our great sis has a book coming out on September 30th. That's right, this week. So we have to support her. Hooded, A Black Girl's Guide to the PhD, documents part of her graduate school experience. And when I say I can't wait to get my hands on it for it to get here, because I pre-ordered. I'm just waiting on it to get here to have mine. What about you? The link is in the show notes to purchase. And I know you're like, a book. I got so many books, but let me tell you why you need this one. You know what? You need a reason. Just listen in and you'll get to learn a little bit about our great sis and why you need to get this book. So let's get into it. So we're going to get started with our icebreaker questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yay. So if you had to eat the same thing every day for the rest of your life, what would it be?
So for this question, it was so funny because I've been thinking about this. I love me some wings. Mm-hmm. I love chicken wings. Mm-hmm. I don't like any other part of the chicken but wings. I don't care who judges me. I love wings. And pineapple because that's like my favorite fruit.
Okay, and out of curiosity, if you had to pick the way it was cooked, what would be your preferred way of cooking the wing?
I like sweet Thai wings. I used to do this thing where I would season it and then lather it with sesame oil and then put it in the oven. And so that will give it like a nice taste. Because then after that, I would rub it in sweet Thai like sauce. So it's sticky wings. It would be sticky, honey, garlicky, sweet Thai wings, which was like,
that sounds real good. Afterwards, I'm going to ask you the name of the sauce that you use.
I'm going to send you the recipe.
Okay. Okay. Name one Black woman researcher that inspires you.
So I hope I don't butcher her name, but her name is Dr. Jedidah Islah or Islah.
Yes.
I love her. And the reason I love her is funny because even though I don't know her work in depth, I remember when I first came out on social media and when I was getting my PhD and I was kind of looking for community, I admired her because she was one of the first people who really started creating a space for Black women, right? And Black women PhDs, Black women in STEM with Vanguard STEM and that page and that community. And the fact that she's a professor, astrophysicist, she's a TED speaker. I mean, come on. I'm basically inspired to be like her, right?
Yeah. And if you could commit one crime, what would it be?
If I could wipe out student loans for everybody, I don't know if that would be a crime or not. I would do that. Student loan and debt.
That It's still a crime because everyone wants us to stay in debt anyway. Yeah, you will be hurting a lot of people.
Yeah, everybody wants us to stay in debt. You're sure right.
So tell us about all the greatness. Where does it stem from? how did you get this juice, this great juice that you have? And did you always know that you would end up getting a PhD in mechanical engineering?
So no, I didn't always know I'd get a PhD in mechanical engineering. As far as I was concerned, I did my undergrad in physics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I did my BS in physics. And I was actually, fun fact, I was in a 3-2 program where you get your bachelor's in physics and then your bachelor's in engineering. And I think it was mechanical engineering. So 3 years and then 2 years. So the 2 years you would go to a different university and you would do that 5-year program.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2010, I did a summer undergraduate research experience at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. One of the best experiences I ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I first got exposed to PhD life and research, right? I worked in a research lab with a research mentor, another PhD student who's my mentor to this day. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And this is just amazing. And I want to know more. I want to see if I take this path, what it can bring me. Mm-hmm. And so mechanical engineering really aligned with the things I was interested in at that time. Mm-hmm. And that's how I ended up getting a PhD in mechanical engineering, because that was the topic that really aligned with the things I was interested in.
Mm-hmm. So I know you said, did you say 2-3 program or 3-2?
Yeah, 3-2.
Yeah. How did you get introduced to that? How did you end up deciding like, okay, yes, there is this 3-2 program, but I'm going to actually get a bachelor's in physics. Like, that's just not a thing that I know people to do, because physics, again.
Physics, I know. So when I had decided to go to university and leave Trinidad to go to university, I had actually done what the equivalent here would be. I don't know if you're familiar with A-levels. So the British system, they have A-levels. Mm-mm. And it's basically, you take that after your SATs, if you had to do another exam, almost like a post-high school exam. Mm-hmm. I forget what it's called, what the equivalent would be called. But I was able to use those credits and transfer those to my BS. So I actually, when I came in, I had enough credits to be a sophomore, and we didn't really realize it until I was in like my second year of school. My professor was like, oh, well, you could actually graduate next year if you want to, and you could just get your bachelor's in physics, and then you could decide what you want to do after. And he was the one who really continued to encourage me to pursue the PhD, especially because I was like, I want to know more. And as much as I enjoy physics, I want to see things being applied. I want to see things in the real world. Mm-hmm. And I knew what I liked and I knew what I didn't like.
Really? And at the tender young age of what, 8?
Of like 20. Because, you know, it was just, physics is a lot of math, a lot of equations.
Yes.
And as much as I was like, oh, it's great to know why F equal MA or something, I want to see that actually being applied in real life. Mm-hmm. Let me see F equal MA. Mm-hmm. So that's why. And I thought it was fate, the fact that I had those transfer credits and I was actually able to graduate in 3 years. So I got my bachelor's in physics in 3 years.
And were you not intimidated, like as a Black woman in physics? And not even as a Black woman, it's physics. Was there no feeling of, I don't belong? Like, how?
You know, I never really started to feel that way until I went to graduate school. Okay. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the school I went to, my undergrad, I went to Adelphi University, is a fairly small school. Our department, our science department, we didn't have engineering, right? So it wasn't an engineering school at all. First of all, we had physics, chemistry, biology. So it was a lot like what I had been accustomed to almost, right? It was a really good transition from high school to Adelphi because it wasn't a huge gap. And the department was so small where we could basically count the number of students in the physics department on our fingers and toes. Mm-hmm. And the counting would still be more than what we had. So it was really small, right? And I think because of that close-knit community, because of the fact that I'm like, okay, well, there are only 5 other people or in this particular year with me or something, I didn't feel intimidated.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really open with my professor. And my professor was really great, even though he was like one of the professors that I would have every single year because of a small department. You have like 5 professors in total.
Mm-hmm. Can you speak a little bit more about your move from Trinidad to New York? How was that for you?
Oh, yeah. It was different and difficult. I still remember my mom came with me, and sometimes I tell her this. I said, "You came with me and you literally dropped me at the school and you're like, good luck." And then she went back to Trinidad. So,
I mean, what did you want her to take your classes with you? What did you
no,
want her
but
to do? What did you expect?
I was like, where you going? So it was really funny because I get off the plane and then even trying to figure out, okay, I don't even have a phone. So I remember buying a phone like in the train station or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then we stayed with her friend in New Jersey. And then her friend took me to the school and I didn't have anything, right? I had my 2 suitcases and some basics. And then just sat in the room like, okay, that piece of Trinidad is really gone. And that is when it sunk in for me. And it was a culture shock at first because I'd never been away from home.
Mm-hmm.
And not only was I away from home, I was on my own. And it took me a while to adjust. Like I would keep to myself, at least in the first couple months. I would go to class, come back, go to class, come back. And I was come back home. And it was actually the same thing when I started graduate school. I would go to class and come back home. I wouldn't even fraternize with anybody just because I felt comfortable that way. Mm-hmm. And as I got more and more involved in school, there was this lady that my mom had met when I think she came to like the orientation before she just left me. She ended up being the dean. I found out later of one of the educational schools. She said, "I will take care of your daughter. Don't worry, mom." And she was like Jamaican, and it was great. And she gave me my first work study job. She really made sure that I had opportunities. She made sure that I, got involved, and she really encouraged me to try to be open to opportunities. The school was in such a way that you could walk from one end of the campus to the other and see the same faces. Mm-hmm. And because of that, you really get familiar with people. And because you get familiar with people, you get comfortable in the space.
Mm-hmm. Black women taking care of each other. That's a beautiful thing, and having that community.
It is. And I had a community at Adelphi, right? There were a group of us, Black students, who would hang out all the time. Like I call them Adelphi Girl. Mm-hmm. And, they were from different parts. It was social work. They were economics, psychology, everything. But when it came together, we were just like one family, which was really, really part of what got me through.
Mm-hmm. As far as your academic journey, was there ever a time where you thought about giving up and you're like, I don't want to do this no more?
There have been a few times. So one of the first times I can tell you about, it was when I got diagnosed with CAPD, and that's Central Auditory Processing Disorder. And when I got that diagnosis, I was really frustrated with myself. I was frustrated with just the situation in general. And I thought, well, I don't want to have to struggle through a PhD. It's already hard being a Black woman in the PhD program. It's already hard being the only Black person in your cohort, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to have to deal with this on top of everything else. So maybe it's better for me to drop out and just have that be stress-free. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the times I considered it. And I had a conversation with my mother, and she set me straight. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll see myself in class on Monday. Mm-hmm. And I really thought about it. And I said, I shouldn't let one thing or one additional thing set me back unless I've tried every single thing in my power. And I realized, okay, it really can't work. It's always great to do everything you can before you give up, right? And so I had to make sure I gave myself a fair shot.
What were some of those things that really impacted your journey when you were diagnosed? Like, how did you even figure out you were having some troubles, like for you to even go and say, hey, something's not right?
So I was having trouble retaining information. I would be in a class. I would feel as if it would go by so quickly that by the time I figured out I had a question, the class was over. Mm-hmm. And I started to get really, really frustrated to the point that I went to the school psychologist who recommended me to a therapist. And I went to the therapist and him and I had a conversation. And he was basically like, I want to do a few tests with you. And because I think it's more than just basically what I was describing in terms of frustration. And he did a test and he referred me to a specialist who did another set of tests. And that's how it came back. And so once I had that diagnosis, he also gave me some tips on how to combat any of the issues I was having, any of the challenges. And that included figuring out how to learn differently. So being more visual when it came to my learning, instead of just reading and trying to retain force information down, really visualize it, draw it out, use Venn diagrams, for example, use bullet points. And that really helped tremendously.
Wow. I'm glad that you got the treatment that you needed, because I think a lot of times people go through these different programs and they go through high school even, and it's something wrong, but it goes undiagnosed.
Exactly. And we never really, because you're scared to kind of take care of your mental health and well-being, right? Because it's ingrained in us. You have to be strong. You have to be strong. You can't show weakness. And for me, that was like a sign of weakness. So that's why I think it took me so long.
Do you feel like after you were diagnosed and you learned your new learning techniques that things got better for you moving forward? Do you feel that the school and the program and everything was supportive of you after your diagnosis?
Yeah, so I would say my CAPD really affected how I performed in classes, right? So how I behaved in classes, I should say, how I took in information and any exams that I needed to take. So my qualifying exam, for example, where with our qualifying exam, they actually tell you what the question is. They're orally giving you the question. For me, I need you to repeat that 3 or 4 times so that I can draw it while you're saying it. So that was one of the things. So I needed the school to give me some type of support, which they did, to help me when it came to making sure that the exam was adjusted. And then when it came to my classes, I actually wore a hearing device. So what it did is I could record the conversations as well. So I had a recorder, but the professor would wear a mic. And once he wore the mic, it would basically increase the volume of what I heard. So it would drown out, like any little noise that I would normally pick up was drowned out. So I would wear those headphones and he would have on the mic and it would pick it up. And those are some of the things that really helped, and that the disability office supported me, which I'm so grateful for. And that definitely improved that first 2 years, right? Because it was really the first 2 years I was impacted. Other than that, once you start your research, you're kind of at your own pace.
You feel like the university had the resources available for you to make sure you can work through your disorder. And did you always feel like you had it? Like, was this something that was new once you got to grad school, or did you always know something wasn't clicking for you?
What's funny is that I used to cram so much in undergrad that I don't even know if maybe that was the reason. Like when I tell you, and my friends will tell you, I always had a book trying to study, trying to understand, because I had difficulty retaining information. So I wondered if taking the time, if it would have been a different outcome,
Talk to us about the Black Girl's Guide to Grad School.
So that blog actually started in 2016, and it was a few months after I graduated. It really started as a way just for me to share some of my experiences. I didn't think anything more of it, right? I'm like, you know what? I think I want to start writing tips and everything. That's when I said, this is a great way to get people some of the information they might be missing. So that's when it started. It was that simple in the beginning, right? And that's the thing. I didn't even think to really nurture it in the beginning. I would say I used it more of a journal too. It was really just me putting down, if you're going through your first year or if you're applying to a school, this is what you should think about. It wasn't anything more. For sure, over time, it has evolved, right?
Yeah.
And it actually evolved into the book. But that was really just it. It was really as simple as I want to share my journey. And it really started also because I wanted to start reviewing essays.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to write some tips on not just, okay, I'm reviewing essays, but I think I want to do tips as well on my experience.
Mm-hmm. So why did you choose a blog about grad school? Like, why not engineering or something else? You're so multidimensional. Like, why grad school specifically?
So I know that there's a lack of representation in STEM, right?
Yes.
We know that just based on our platform and based on our community. But then as I looked across industry, I realized there was a lack of representation in leadership, no matter the industry. It could be finance, it could be marketing, it could be communication.
Psychology.
I really saw psychology. Anything you think about when you look at leadership, when you think about people with advanced degrees, when you see people with advanced degrees, you don't see representation. Now, is there more representation in some instances than others? Of course. I think across the board, we all need that elevation in terms of the representation that we see, right? We need the will to elevate so that we can see more of us up there. Mm-hmm. And that's why I did it in the general terms of graduate school, because while my experience was about a graduate woman in STEM, I really just wanted women to win, like Black women to win. You want to do a degree, a grad degree, you go, girl, because that shit ain't easy. I know what it's like to get a graduate degree. No matter what field you're in, it's going to be hard.
Yeah. And is there a topic in research in mechanical engineering that you found interesting that you didn't get a chance to study?
Yeah, robotics, I think, because when I was doing my own research in the wind tunnel, we used this robotic arm to measure the temperature of the air to get the wind speed, basically. It would go up and down and we'd have to program it. And I always thought, this is so cool. I wish I spent more time understanding the mechanics behind it and understanding how robotics work, because I think I would have definitely enjoyed that.
Cool. Now that you're post PhD, are there any experiences that you wish you took advantage of while you were actually working on your PhD?
Yeah, I wish I did more collaborative research with other professors. I wish that I expanded my PhD network beyond STEM during my time as a PhD. I did a good job at that, but when you go to school on such a big campus, I'm staying within the quad. So I only saw people when I was involved in Black Graduate Professional Student Association, and I would see people there, but I really didn't network as much as I think I could have. Network with other MBAs, network with other PhD students that weren't in STEM. And then I would have definitely taken advantage of a different class, right? Even though I did audit a lot of classes coming in because of the fact that I was physics coming in and I was now mechanical engineering. I took a bunch of undergraduate mechanical engineering courses. But I would have liked to take something fun, like we have a wines class. That would have been great because I love wine.
Me too.
So,
can you tell us a little bit about some of the experiences that you did have while working in grad school that weren't as successful? So maybe some of your failures.
I mean, apart from all my experimental failures.
Yes, apart from those.
Yeah, in the beginning when I started to lead students, that was difficult for me. I was a little intimidated, right? Here I am, a Black woman, and I'm now in charge of these 5 men who are Caucasian. I felt intimidated, especially because they came from another PhD who was a white male. And the way he did things and the way I expected things were different. So we definitely had some growing pains. I felt as if, I don't want to get anybody mad, or, I don't want to be the aggressive Black woman. I don't want them to hate me. I don't want them to feel like I'm giving them too much work. I had all these things in my mind I would try not to do. And because I try not to do that, I failed to lead. And it took me some time and it took some self-reflection to understand that if they fail, I fail. Because if they don't do it right, my professor, he not looking at them. And that happened one point in time, right? Where they didn't do something or they didn't have time to do something. And my professor was basically like, well, you should make sure it gets done because it's your project. They're not the ones getting a PhD, you are.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
So you recently let us know that you wrote a book and you showed us the bomb artwork that goes with this bomb book that I cannot wait to read. So can you tell us whatever you can share, what to expect out of the book, and what was the writing process like for you? What inspired you to even write the book in the first place?
Yes, I am so excited because my book, Hooded, is coming out September 30th. I mentioned before that I did the blog, right? And I started the blog kind of just share my journey. And I realized that, okay, I need to write more because I had so many experiences, just almost like pent up emotion that I was carrying from grad school. I just started writing. And at first, it was really more for myself, more therapeutic. And then I said, maybe it's time to share. And one of my friends, I let him read like one of my poems or something. And he said, you should share this. So I thought about it for some time. And 3 years later, the book was finished. And I really pushed myself, especially with quarantine and everything, to get it done. And I said, you know what? It's time for people to read a little bit more about me. So what to expect from the book? The book is really about my time during grad school. I break it down for every year and just some things that I went through, from me trying to drive on the highway for the very first time to me saying the people who tell you bring sand to the beach or don't bring sand to the beach, they lied, because you should bring a whole jar to the beach when it comes to school, because dating sucks. So I talk about, those little tidbits. I talk about some of the traumatic experiences. I talk about my CAPD. I talk about trying to figure out life when I'm going through that with people close to me. At the end of each chapter, I try to at least have a few tips. And the tips are really what stood out to me, right, within my year. Tips like, okay, well, I wish I had budgeted more, so I put tips on budgeting. Or I wish I'd networked more, so I put tips on networking. Things like that. What really inspired me was having a community of people and really seeing the fact that there is a need, right? And even though it may not be, this is the Bible to go to graduate school kind of thing, like, we're talking and you're like, oh, wow, I've felt like that before. That is really sometimes all people need, to be able to have that space to say, oh, wow, I definitely felt that way, or I'm feeling that way.
What was the writing process like for you?
I've been trying to finish this for years now, right? So clearly I didn't have a timeline. And I think part of it was after I wrote my dissertation like 200 pages long. I swore to myself I wasn't going to write anything again that long. And I think in the beginning of the book, just writing really turned me off, right? Writing pages upon pages. I would have to motivate myself to start back writing. I would write a few pages and then I would stop. So I would have these gaps of months before I would write a page again. And then eventually I just said, look, let me start putting some goals towards this. I'm going to finish this chapter by this date. I'm going to finish this chapter by this date. And then I told myself, I want to publish this book by September. I really wanted to do it for my birthday, which September 3rd. So I said, I want to make sure I do it by September, definitely in 2020. And that is what made me kind of work backward, right? Because I was like, okay, I need to get this done. I need to make sure it's edited, start the publishing process. It's difficult, especially when you're doing marketing, you're doing all those things kind of grassroots, right? I'm looking for beta readers, grassroots, doing editing, doing proofreading, but I wouldn't change it. It's been a really great learning experience.
And is there anything else we can look out for from you soon?
Soon, yes. So I recently launched STEMinist Empowered LLC, and STEMinist Empowered LLC is meant to really empower and advocate for women of color who are really interested in pursuing advanced degrees. So I want to continue to share my journey. I want to continue to share my tips. And that's why I partner with universities. I partner with different events to talk a little bit about my journey, whether it be imposter syndrome or activating your network or navigating graduate school as a person of color. What is going to happen with Feminist Empowered is that Feminist Empowered is going to help fuel that, as well as Howell's Black Girls Guide to Graduate School. Because now that I have the book and I've talked about my journey, I really want to start featuring more women and their experiences, right? Because I think it really helps when you have a community of stories that you can go back to. And of course, we always have the free personal statement reviews, which I've been doing for 4 years. So I love doing the personal statement reviews because it's a great way for me to connect to some of my followers, as well as just people who need the help, right? Because it could be really frustrating if you're doing a personal statement and you don't know where to start. So I've done over 100. So we're going to continue to do that under Feminist Empowered.
Oh, nice. So can you give us 3 tips for someone who wants to study mechanical engineering?
Yes. First of all, leverage your undergraduate mechanical engineering experience. And that's for people who have the undergraduate experience, right? Or in my case, like where if you not had any engineering experience, let's say you did a pure science, take undergraduate courses. Definitely that's a tip. And you can audit. They're really great professors who would let you sit in the class and they would grade your homework as if you're taking a class, as long as you kind of show that you're motivated to learn more when it comes to that subject.
Mm-hmm.
Really, once you get into it, get yourself a study group, right? Get yourself someone or people you can depend on, people who you can really look to, especially in the first couple of years when you have that coursework. You want to make sure you have that support, and then find a mentor for sure. Your mentor doesn't necessarily have to look like you. In fact, I encourage people to get mentors who don't look like them, as well as people who look like them, right? Because you want that diversity of thought. So I think those are 3 things, plus a little bit more sprinkle.
Thank you. If we want to connect with you after this episode, how can we do so?
On my website, www.malikagrayson.com. Instagram, my handle is at Dr. Malika Grayson. Or Twitter, it's BGGS Grad School, so Black Girls Guide to Grad School. If you search, you'll find me. LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is just my name, Malika Grayson. But if you search my name on any one of those places, you'll find me.
So our sis is bomb, right? I told you the shit that it. Thorough, raw, real. And again, the link to connect with her and to grab the book are in the show notes. So let's support her and make sure our stories are getting the shine and the support that they deserve. To connect with me, I am at The Research Her on all of the socials. You can also reach me at theresearchher.com. So don't hesitate to hit me up. And until next time, my great sis, I holla.